I wanted to share with you a couple things that we talked about last time before we begin looking at the Mishnah. One of them was the issue of incest, and I found in Professor Google's site something that I thought I should share with you. The second paragraph here: some cultures proscribe sexual relations between clan members, even when no traceable biological relationship exists, while members of other clans are permissible irrespective of the existence of a biological relationship. It's not too clear to me what exactly that means. But in many cultures, certain types of cousin relations are preferred as sexual and marital partners, where in others, these are taboo. Some cultures permit sexual and marital relations between aunts and uncles and nephews and nieces. I think I mentioned to you that in my mother's family, one of my great uncles was married to his niece. And my grandparents were cousins. In some instances, brother-sister marriages have been practiced by the elites. This we know from Persian. The Persians, that's one of the things that makes the book of Esther so funny. People don't understand that. In the fact that Ahasuerus is convinced to conduct a beauty contest is such a funny thing from Persia, because the Persians were so concerned with the purity of the line that Persian kings married their sisters. The fact that Esther would become the King Ahasuerus' wife is such a joke in the Persian culture. It's outrageous. I am convinced that the Book of Esther is really meant to be a very funny critique of Persian society. Ahasuerus is a drunken fool and kills his wife, and then has a beauty contest, and marries a woman he doesn't even know her background. It's a joke.
Rabbi, can I make a comment when you have a chance?
Sure.
It relates to what you've been saying. I have a big problem. Maybe you could give me advice. My 5 rival wives are fighting over my 20 horses and 20 chariots. What do I do?
Well, I can refer you to a couple sheiks in the but no, there's no question that those relationships are filled with issues. We have our issues too, but those complicate things, I think. But anyhow, that's enough about that. there was also I had suggested that it would be worth looking at how the Mishnah Torah, Rambam, codifies. I mean, I'm not looking at the details, but at the way the Mishnah Torah, which is so very different from the Mishnah in terms of its outlook. The Mishnah Torah really, Maimonides was deeply influenced by Aristotle, and his approach to halakha is much more, shall I say, much more Western, much more the way we think. So, for instance, I'm showing you here the beginning of his section, Hilchot Yibum v'Chalitza, the laws dealing with Yibum and Chalitza. Look how he sets it out. Mitzvat aseh min haTorah. It is a positive biblical command that a man shall take in levirate marriage his paternal brother's wife if he died childless, whether after nisuin, full wedlock, or only after betrothal. If the brother died without any children, zera, so it's not only sons, but daughters. For it says, uven ein lo, in Dvarim, in Deuteronomy, it says he has no son. And then it continues, Yevama yavo aleha. Her brother-in-law will marry her. Umin haTorah, and from the Torah, ein tzarich lekadesh yevimto. He does not have to marry his sister-in-law. Shezo ishto hi shehiknu ota lo min hashamayim. Ela yavo aleha. Uchtubata al nichsei ba'ala shemet. So this is not in the Torah. We haven't come across this yet. Umin haTorah, from the Torah, he is not required, ein tzarich. He doesn't have to marry his sister-in-law. Shezo ishto hi shehiknu ota lo min hashamayim. This is to be his wife because it came from God. God took her husband, and he should then marry her. Uchtubata al nichsei ba'ala shemet. The money promised by her husband doesn't go to him. It's uchtubata al nichsei ba'ala shemet. That is in the estate of her husband. Second, lo ratza liabem. He doesn't want to marry her. Or she doesn't want. O shelo ratzta hi. Then they do chalitza. He choletzla. He takes off her shoe. And afterwards, she is allowed to marry someone else. Umitzvat aseh, and it's a positive commandment from the Torah. Lachlotz, chalitza is a commandment. Im lo ratza liaben, if he doesn't want to marry her. For it says in the same chapter of Dvarim 25 that she should remove his shoe, etc. And then he says, mitzvat yibum kodemet lemitzvat chalitza. Not what we have seen. He says that the yibum, levirate marriage, takes priority over chalitza. Then he goes on. That's what it says in the Torah, same chapter, ben ein lo. It says he doesn't have a son. And then he explains, echad haben ve'echad habat. It doesn't make any difference whether it's a son or a daughter, or he has a son or a daughter from another relationship. Ho'il v'yesh lo zera mikol makom. Since he has an offspring from wherever. In other words, if it's out of wedlock even, that's his son. And if he dies, it's not that he's dying childless. He had a son or a daughter. Uven be'isha zo, whether it be from his wife or from some other woman, this frees his wife from chalitza and yibum, even if the child was a mamzer. That is, he had an adulterous relationship. If that woman was Jewish, that's a mamzer, and that counts. Or oved avodah zarah, or a pagan worshiper. The woman was born Jewish, but worshipped other gods. This frees his wife from chalitza and yibum. But if he had sex with a maidservant, meaning a Canaanite, or a Samaritan, that doesn't do it. Because that's such a child from a Canaanite slave or a Samaritan are not Jews. They don't count. Che'ilu einam. They don't count. For we have a quote in Shmot, in Exodus, that it says, with regard to a Canaanite slave, ha'isha v'ladeha tihiyeh ladoneha. The woman and the woman's children belong to her master, which teaches, says Rambam, shevilada kimota. Her children, any issue from her womb is like her. In other words, is not Jewish. Uvechutit, and with regard to the Samaritan or the Gibeonite, someone who is kind of related but not really Jewish, We have a quote in Devarim, in Deuteronomy, Ki yasir et bincha me'acharai. And this he interprets as Meisir oto milechashev bakahal. He is removed from being considered part of the community. And even if his son is freed, the son of the Canaanite slave is freed, or his son converts, that is a kutit, converts to Judaism, they are like other converts and slaves who are freed, and such a child is not considered a child to free his wife from the requirement of levirate marriage, or if not, chalitza. If he had a son born from his Canaanite slave, and he freed that son, and he freed the slave and married her, and then died without any children from his wife, then this woman has to undergo yibum to his brother. It doesn't count. It's when she gave birth, she was a slave. Sorry. Afal pi shebena mimenu, even though the slave's son came from him, mimenu kayam shekvar shichro, even though afterwards he freed him and freed her. Sorry. Next, somebody who dies and his wife is pregnant. If she gave birth after he died, then he is considered childless. But if she had a miscarriage after he died, he did not have any children. But if she died and the child was alive and came into this world alive, even if that child died within an hour after birth, she is freed from chalitza and yibum. But according to the rabbis, but according to the rabbis, they set a later requirement. He has to live for several months, for 9 months, 9 complete months, before he's considered alive. If it's not known for how long he's lived, im chai shloshim yom, if he's lived for 30 days, that is a live birth. And his father is considered to be a father, and there is no chalitza or yibum required. But if the baby dies within 30 days, even on the 30th day, whether it's accident, like he fell, and this is considered a doubtful birth, and she then needs chalitza according to the rabbis, but she does not qualify for levirate marriage. So you see, I wanted you to see how the Rambam, in contrast to the Mishnah, has a clear sense of laying out the whole issue, basing it on verses from the Torah, and kind of setting out the basic principles, and not kind of going into his 5 brothers and 4 sisters and all this other stuff. He gets to that, but not at the beginning. Nelson, please unmute. Yes.
I have 2 questions. Right. First, right at the beginning, he limits the levirate issue to, he calls it a paternal brother. I didn't understand what that was. It's not the father's brother. It's a brother on the father's side. They share a father.
That's right.
Not mother. But the Torah doesn't do that.
That's correct. But and we'll come to that. But yes, you are correct.
And the other issue is about this non-Jewish woman, however it arises. Is he allowed to inherit her? I mean, she's not automatically. Can he pass property on to this person who's not Jewish?
Well, what happens is that the child is a slave.
Well, he can free them.
Well, he could free them. That's correct.
Can he pass property on them?
Well, if he wants to, he can, sure.
So he's allowed to pass property out of the tribe.
Not land, no.
Not land, but
no.
A jewel or something.
Yeah. Not land, no.
Land has to go to a Jewish kinsman.
Exactly, part of the tribe. Yes, Karen, please.
The first couple statements seem to contradict each other. The first one said, it's a law from the Torah. It's a mitzvah, positive mitzvah from the Torah. And then it said, it's not, or something. Maybe I misunderstood.
Let's just wait, okay. No, this is in the Mishnah. Wait. I went too far. Here it is. Coming. Okay. Mitzvat aseh min haTorah just a minute. Mitzvat aseh min haTorah sheyabem adam eshet achiv may aviv. This is not in the Torah.
Right.
But we'll see that later on, where the rabbis kind of limit that. Bein min hanisuin, bein min erusin, if he dies without any children. But then it says in the second law,
before that, where it says ein tzarich lekadesh. Right there, umin haTorah ein tzarich lekadesh yivamah.
Umin haTorah ein tzarich lekadesh yivimto. Okay. Ein tzarich lekadesh yivimto shezo ishto hi shehiknu ota lo min. I'm not sure exactly what this what the force of this is.
Okay.
I understood it that this is kind of
remember part of it, but not all of it. Enough to get it.
A pre-statement of the second if he doesn't want to.
Okay, that's the
or
problem.
She doesn't want to, that they do chalitza.
So
that's the way I understood Ein Tzarich. But I'm not sure what exactly this the force of this is. Ein tzarich lekadesh yevimto. Shizo ishto he.
So he doesn't need it. It's like she's already his wife. Like his brothers, if he dies,
Shizo ishto he.
She's already his wife.
Shehiknu ota lo mina shamayim. Ela yavo aleha. It's not clear to me what exactly he's trying to say here. Let me do a little research.
That's what threw me too.
Let me do a little research. Let me what we let's see. I can probably get this, but I don't want to take the time now. In the Mishnah Torah, the traditional Mishnah Torah is set up kind of like the Talmud, and there are commentaries on the Mishnah Torah. One of the more important ones is by the Ramah, the Rabbi Moshe Isserles, whose comments on the Shulchan Aruch are followed by the Ashkenazim. But let me check those comments because they will explain it. Ein tzarich. Okay, it's a good question, and I'm sorry that I didn't prepare that. I will for next time. Any other questions? Finally, the last thing, I have to correct something that I said. The question came up, is a woman who went through chalitza allowed to marry a Kohen? It doesn't, it's in the Torah, it does not say that. However, in chapter 9 of Yevamot, the third Mishnah is talking about something else, and I left that out, about relationships. We learned that about Isur Mitzvah, that is relationships that the rabbis added as forbidden, added on to what the Torah said. That's what it's talking about. But then it continues to say, in contrast, a widow, almanah, married to a high priest, or a divorcee, or a yivama who performed chalutza, who is married to a kohen hedyot, married to a common priest, a mamzeret, that is a woman who is a product of an adulterous or incestuous relationship, or a netina, a Gibeonite woman. Remember, these are the bearers of water and wood that are not really Jewish, who is married to a Jew, notice, of unflawed lineage, that is a kosher Jew, a Jewish woman who is married to a Gibeonite or to a mamzer, all of them have the right to receive payment for their marriage contract, ketubah, although they really were prohibited to marry. So we see that in this Mishnah, it's fascinating because I went on Wikipedia and I asked the question, can a chalutza, can a woman who had whose husband died and the brother-in-law refused to marry her, can she then marry a Kohen? And it took me, the fourth, I think, source finally referred me to this. And it's interesting because in the Babylonian Talmud, they debate how come it's not said so in the Torah that a chalutza is forbidden to a Kohen. And they try to find something. It's a vav, an extra vav that isn't needed. And they base this on that. And the commentaries say, no, it's not really that they're deriving it from it. They're just kind of using that as support for it. In other words, this was really not in the Torah, but the rabbis added it. So that
I have a question when you're ready.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sometime back you said something about 30 days. Now I'm curious about, is there a difference between a life? How do the halachas involve life? And then when is the soul part of that life? In other words, in the 30-day thing. So I think in Catholicism, life begins at conception. So I'm trying to think of all those distinctions. What is a life? What is a not life? And when does the soul enter the body? Complicated.
So let me answer quickly. You know that Pidyon Haben, which is a ceremony done for the firstborn son, is done at 30 days. Infant mortality was quite common. If the baby lived for a month, that was considered, okay, that baby's going to live. And so the Pidyon Haben is not done earlier than 30 days. In terms of when life begins, up until St. Augustine, Christians did not have the belief that life began at conception. That was an innovation of St. Augustine. According to Jewish tradition based on the Torah, you know, there's a verse in Exodus about two men who are fighting, and there's a woman who is pregnant, and they hit her, and she aborts the fetus. That is not considered murder. The men who were fighting have to pay a fine. That is used as a basis to say a fetus is not a human being. But once the head comes out of the birth canal, that is a human being. Prior to that, there is debate. In fact, I'm studying with my teacher, Rabbi Brand, we are in the middle of a tshuva. We read a contemporary responsum from the Tzitz Eliezer, an Israeli great rabbi, but who is more lenient, who was an expert, a great expert on medical issues, and he allows abortion in cases of detection of Tay-Sachs or of other cases. We're currently reading another tshuva of Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, who was a great teacher in Brooklyn and who does not permit it. So on the issue of abortion, there is a halachic dispute, a contemporary halachic dispute. But everybody agrees that once the birth begins, that is a human being. Yes, Stephen.
So, Rabbi, the case you stated 2 minutes ago of the two men, that was unintentional. Would it be a difference if it was intentional?
No. No, it's not. It's not considered murder or manslaughter.
Not when doctors abort fetuses a moment or a week or 2 months before the birth. That can't be considered as a viable, very potential life. And if there's no threat to the mother.
Potential life, of course, once conception takes place, or one could even say, as soon as a woman ovulates, there's potential life. Or as soon as the sperm meets the egg, that's potential life. They're all potential life, according to Judaism, however. Until the actual birth, that is not human life. There is, again, as I just indicated, there is a dispute even today about abortion, but Rabbi Feinstein apparently does not allow it in any case. He specifically does not allow it in the case of a detection of Tay-Sachs. But again, there are more liberal views, and I guess it depends who you're going to follow.
Rabbi, when does birth begin? Is it when the umbilical cord is cut?
No,
At which point?
As soon as the head emerges from the birth canal, that is a human being.
The baby is still inside and fully formed, and it is not alive independently. But
that's
still,
correct.
What is the responsibility of the woman that she changes her mind one way and then the next day another way? Is there no degree of responsibility of the woman? And that we didn't discuss a very complex issue of rape and incest. I mean, this is it's never going to end, this discussion.
Well, what the basic principle in Judaism is that a fetus that is going to cause harm to the mother is considered a rodef. That is, it's a danger to her. And if you are challenged by somebody who is going to kill you or hurt you, you are commanded to protect yourself. You are not supposed to turn the other cheek. That is not a Jewish value. You are to get up, to stand up for yourself and defend yourself. And so if the mother is being attacked, that is, the fetus is a danger to her life, and for some more liberal decisors, if it is a danger to her health, and some that would add even mental health, then that is considered a reason to remove the threat. And it is not considered a murder because it is not a human being until birth.
Rabbi, could you say a couple words about rape, incest, and about cases where there's a pregnancy without any formal marriage ritual or engagement ritual?
Those are not reasons in the halacha for an abortion. One could argue, and I would certainly support that in the case of rape or incest, say by a father with his daughter or an uncle or whatever, that one would argue that this 10-year-old in Ohio who was impregnated by a teenager, one could argue that this would endanger her not only physical health, but certainly her mental health. And a woman who is raped and has to carry the rapist's baby, this must be an impossibly difficult thing. So one could argue that for her mental health, it can be permitted. I would certainly argue that. But not every authority would. The basic principle is rodef. It is a threat to her life. And as I said, some authorities go further to say it's a threat to her health, and some even go further to say it's a threat to her mental health.
What about the threat to the child if it's brought up, if it's unwanted?
That's not considered an issue. Obviously, children can be adopted by loving parents, and that used to be quite common. I think there are many cases of couples who cannot have children and who very much want children, including gay men who are in a long-term relationship and want to have a child. So there are many, many ways of solving that other than abortion. I think we don't pay enough attention to that. And there are too many children who are in foster care. And that's not a good experience, I think, for most, or maybe all. Let's look at the next Mishnah. We did this this fifth Mishnah where we saw that there's some confusion that the positions of Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai. Beit Hillel looks here to be more stringent than Beit Shammai, and there's another tradition quoted in the Talmud that switches the opinions. We see the same case in other places where things are switched. In the next Mishnah, the sixth Mishnah of chapter 3, we have again 3 brothers. 2 are married to 2 sisters, and the third brother is married to another woman. And in this case, one of the husbands of the sisters dies. And the one who is married to, not to the sister, but to the unrelated woman, takes the widow as his wife, but he also dies without children. So now it says the first one that is both, okay, so the commentary says, so now we have 2 women. We have the sister and we have the unrelated woman who are both married to one of the brothers. So what happens? 2 women, in this situation, both women are now widows, one a widow for the second time, the other a widow for the first time, but the first woman, that is the first wife, the one whose sister is married to his brother, is dismissed. She can't marry the surviving brother because he's married to her sister, and she's the sister of his wife, and so he can't marry her. And the second woman, that is the woman who was unrelated but whose husband died first, she is dismissed also due to her status as the first woman's rival wife. So in this case, both women neither go through yibum nor chalitza. Following the first levirate marriage, this second woman became the rival wife of the sister and is therefore exempt also from levirate marriage and chalitza. However, if however, the brother the brother only did ma'amar. He didn't completely marry this this woman who's not married, is not related to his wife, his brother's wife. Then she does chalitza, but cannot he does not do levirate marriage. This is again the same principle that we saw before, that betrothal only without completing the process is enough to make the relationship and requires chalitza. But in that situation, yibum is not permitted. Next case, 3 brothers, 2 married to 2 sisters, and one of them married to an unrelated woman. In this case, the one who is married to the unrelated woman dies. And one of the brothers who's married to one of the sisters marries her, but he dies too. So now what happens? Well, the first wife of this brother, whose sister is married to his brother, she, because he's married to her sister, he can't marry her, and therefore she is exempt, yotz'ah, meaning there is no yibum and there is no chalitza, yotz'ah. There is no, she's prohibited due to incest. A man can't marry a woman and her sister. The second one, who is not related, but she's the co-wife, she's the rival wife. And we know the rule that the rival wife is also follows the other wife. She's out, so the rival wife is out. Again, this one says, if he only does ma'amar, if he only does the betrothal and dies again without children, then the rival wife, the one who is the rival wife, even though it wasn't a complete marriage, she's not then the rival wife, but she's not the rival wife. It's a half and half. So she does chalitza, but there is no yibum. Now, in this case, the translation is not the translation of the text we have. And so I've been working on trying to correct the translation. Let's look at what it says. Okay. In the case of 3 brothers, 2 of whom were married to 2 sisters, and one is married to an unrelated woman, and the following occurred. The translation says one of the husbands of the sisters died. But what does our text say? The one who is married to the unrelated woman dies. And one of the brothers who's married to one of the sisters marries her and dies without children. So I've tried to correct it to say, he who was married to the unrelated woman died, and one of the husbands of the sisters married the deceased woman's wife, and then he too died childless as well. The text then continues The first one, Harishonah, goes out because she is married. Her sister is married to the man who's a surviving brother. And the second one is her or rival wife. So she goes out too. And then it continues, if there was only betrothal and he died without any children, then there's chalitza and not yibum, just like the previous case. But what did the translation do? The translation, which I have here in parentheses, one of the husbands of the sisters died, and he who was married to the unrelated woman married the deceased husband's wife, and then the wife of the second brother, the other one of the sisters, died. That's not in our text. Afterward, the brother who was married to the unrelated woman died, leaving two women for levirate marriage before the remaining brother, the unrelated woman and the woman who was previously prohibited as a sister of his deceased wife. In this case, the sister is forbidden to him forever. She's not forbidden due to her status as his wife's sister, as his wife already died, and one's wife's sister is permitted after the wife's death. However, since she was already forbidden to him at one time, she is forbidden to him forever. When she first happened before the brothers for levirate marriage, before the third brother married her, she was forbidden to the second brother as his wife's sister. Therefore, she's forbidden to him forever. In addition, she exempts her rival wife, the unrelated woman, from levirate marriage. This is not in this Mishnah. And for some reason, I don't know, that the translation is talking about another Mishnah, which we're going to see next time. So I worked hard cutting out the part that's wrong and putting in the part that's right. So this is what this Mishnah says. Case of three brothers, two of whom were married to two sisters, one married to an unrelated woman. And the following occurred. He who was married to the unrelated woman died childless. One of the husbands of the sisters married the deceased husband's wife, and then also died childless. The first woman, that is the sister who was originally married to the brother who performed levirate marriage, is dismissed because the surviving brother is married to her sister. Okay, and the second woman, that is the woman who's unrelated, is a rival wife, and therefore she too is dismissed as her rival wife. If, however, it was only betrothal with the other unrelated woman, and he died childless, then this unrelated woman must perform chalitza and may not enter into levirate marriage, as levirate betrothal renders her status with regard to yibum as similar to the rival wife of his wife's sister, but it's not a complete thing, so there has to be chalitza, because it's in between, only betrothal. Any questions? I corrected the translation.
Are you going to send it to Sefaria?
I am going to contact them. I don't know what happened here, but you agree, Karen, that
Yeah. I agree that your translation is fine, and theirs, I don't know.
It's of another thing. We're going to see it later on. Oy. All right. Anyhow, it was a bit of a struggle. This is complicated, plenty complicated. But when you mix them up, it's really bad. Okay, everyone. Yes, Elliot. Nelson.
Where they parsed leveret improperly and made it irate. And I thought, yes.
What was that?
There was a place earlier in the English where they parsed the word leveret improperly.
Oh, yeah.
Irate.
Yes, somehow it was I thought I had corrected it. Somehow the translation had a space between the V and the I. I thought I had corrected it, but I know that was a mistake in there in for some reason.
But it was some kind of irate, so it was all right.
So I won't be irate. Okay, everybody. Well, take care, and I'm going to check on that Mishnah Torah thing, and we'll see you, God willing, next week.
If I may speak up for a second, by the time we return, it'll be Jean's birthday, and so happy birthday, Jean.
That is correct. Her birthday is Tuesday, and our daughter is putting together. She doesn't know this, I hope. Our daughter's putting together a little book of greetings from people, friends and relatives, and people we've known, who some of whom we're not in touch with, but for this I ask people to send greetings. So any of you want to send her greetings, I will gladly accept them. Send them please to Lettofsky@gmail.com. Lettofsky@gmail.com. Thank you. Take care. Hello.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.